So I just need to pull up the questions that I sent you now that I'm not in the office. Um, so
And you'll take it down from YouTube at some point,
yeah,
right?
I will take it down from YouTube. Yeah,
Right.
I will take it down from YouTube. Yeah. So let's see. So I just sent you the questions, right? I mean, did you take a look at those by any
I
chance?
saw very quickly. Yeah, got a quick look at them.
Okay. Let me see. I don't know what's okay. I don't know why the questions that I sent you are not showing up here, but anyway, I kind of remember what the questions were, Tom. It's just like three questions. So let me start out. First of all, thank you so much for doing this, and sorry about all this miscommunication. So my first question is, you show in a lot of your work, and it's very robust. And some of my colleagues, as you might know, Julie Irwin, has done some work on it. That you find that people who buy experiences or sample experiences are happier than those who spend money on material goods. Why is it happening? I know it's multiply determined, but if you could tell me the top 3 or 4 reasons why you find this effect, I'd really appreciate it.
Right. We've spent a lot of time exploring three mechanisms that produce this effect. One is that experiences become more of, they're a bigger part of your identity. You can care a lot about your material goods, and people project some of themselves onto their material goods and show them to others with pride, etc. So it's not like there's no identity tied into your material goods, but your material goods, however much you're identified with them, remain outside of you. They aren't you, whereas your experiences really are a part of who you are. You're the sum total of all the experiences you've had. And they're just a bigger part of who we are. So the experiences we accumulate, we're building a greater us. We're building a Vita, the equivalent, an experiential Vita. And that's gratifying, and it's gratifying for a longer period of time. So that's one thing. Another thing is that experiences tend to connect us to other people more than material goods do. If you're a connoisseur of some kinds of material goods, you might connect with other connoisseurs in very rich ways. I don't mean to demean that in the slightest. But we found in study after study that for most people, the experiential purchases they make connect them to other people more than their material goods. And you can see this in a variety of different ways. If you found out that someone else had the same experience with you versus someone bought the same product, and you ask them, how much kinship do you have with that person? People say they feel much more similar to someone with the same experience than someone with the same material good. When we ask people to reflect on a significant experiential purchase, and then we put them in a dictator game where they're allowed to keep money for themselves or give some to the other person, they seem to feel this expansive connection to others so that they give more money to other people. And I think that's the strongest testament to this sense of other connectedness that experiences provide. And then finally, experiences seem to be less, they lend themselves less to problematic comparisons that we might make. The phrase of, trying to keep up with the Joneses, that seems most apt for material goods. When someone else has a better material good than you do, it promotes certain kinds of comparisons, envious comparisons that make us less happy. We tend to do that less when it comes to experiences, and we've documented this in a variety of different studies. The simplest kind of thought experiment, which is one we've run as a study, illustrates this, that, suppose you just got a new computer, and someone else, I show up with a better version of the same thing. How much would that bother you? A lot. You want to get the best computer you can, and if I got a better one for the same price, you'd be a little upset. If you took a trip to the Maldives, let's say, and you loved it, you came back, you're all happy, then it turns out I went too, and we compared notes, and I stayed in a better place, I was right on the beach, everything just had better weather. That would bother you too, but not as much. You know, you have your memories that you're going to treasure, your stories you're going to tell. I have mine. You're not going to trade your vacation for mine, whereas if I got a better computer, you might trade yours for mine. And these kinds of comparisons, oh, what do other people have? Am I being shortchanged here? That can rob us of some enjoyment of what we have. And that happens just much more readily, much more frequently for material goods than experiences.
That's great. So it ties in quite well, I think, with some of the research that's showing that people who are materialistic by nature, oriented toward being materialistic. So one part of that is that, you know, they signal their status by the possessions that they have, tend to be unhappier, and there's a variety of reasons why that happens, including that they become a little more antisocial, and also this, you know, social comparisons angle kicks in, and they end up feeling worse as a result, and so on. And your set of results seem to tie in really well with those sets of results. Now, have you examined whether, in fact, people who tend to kind of focus more on materialistic stuff end up actually pissing other people off? So if, for example, I come and tell you that, hey, look at my new laptop, versus I come and tell you, let me tell you about the recent trip to Maldives that I've made, would people, in fact, not want to hang out with me as much if I, you know, flaunted my laptop as opposed to a vacation, an experience?
Yes. Well, a couple of things to say about that. One is, suppose that someone said, oh, Raj, you know, you're a materialist. You're so materialistic. Has that person just complimented you? Well, no. We know that that's not a compliment. And that says a lot. And we've done studies in which we have people who don't know each other come together and get acquainted conversations. But we constrain what they can talk about. In one condition, they're told to talk about, each of them, a significant material purchase they had made over the last couple of years, and in another condition, a significant experiential purchase they made. After the conversation, we separate them and ask them to rate how much they liked each other, how much they enjoyed the conversation, and they enjoy talking about experiences more and enjoy each other more when they've talked about experiences. So a big emphasis on material things, again, promotes this kind of comparison that is not so pleasant, not so enjoyable.
Mm-hmm. So there's nothing about experiences that makes it less comparable, as far as I can tell, than material things. Perhaps it's just a little less amenable to being quantified, you know, a laptop, but even vacations I can think can be priced. So is it the case that somehow experiences are thought to be non-zero-sum, non-scarce, versus material things? There's some element that, you know, there's only so much to go around. If I have a laptop, that means there's one less for the world. Is that something that's going on as to why it is that, you know, material things evoke this jealousy and envy and all that?
No, I don't think so. I mean, we certainly, I think a lot of it is this connection to the self. And when, you know, you think of this thing as part of yourself. Now, we do lots of social comparison. Where do I stand in a hierarchy? What's my status? And so on. So it's not like, oh, it's connected to yourself and there's no social comparison. But the nature of the social comparison is just a little bit different. We're more protective of ourselves. And what does it mean for your experience to be part of yourself? Well, it's your life narrative. It's the stories that you tell, and I'm not even going to be tempted to think, oh, I wish I had those stories. I mean, in extreme cases, of course, if, you know, I went for a walk in the park every day for 2 weeks and you climbed Everest during that time, I might think, oh, I'd have a better story of it talking about Everest than my daily walk in the park. uh, but the experiences we have are a big part of who we are, the stories we want to share with other people. So when we hear someone with, in some sense, we might even concede better stories, we're not going to want to trade those. We're going to say, well, this is part of my narrative. That's good for you, but this is who I am. Whereas it's so easy to interchange material goods, so easy to imagine. Okay, what would have to happen for me to have your house and you know, vice versa? Not much. It's very easy to imagine that. Now, what would it be like for you to have had that vacation and me to have this vacation? Oh, what am I having to take out? Sure, it was raining, but when it rained, we all got together and played cards and had the kinds of talks we wouldn't have had otherwise. You just build, again, an experiential vita out of your experiences that makes the comparisons not have much gravity.
Right. Okay, one last question, Tom. You know, if there is somebody who's materialistic, and the reason why they're materialistic is really rooted in their desire to be superior to other people, and they want to signal their status through the materialism. Could you extrapolate from that to say that they're probably not going to be happy? And one big reason for that is going to be that they're not going to be the kind of people that other people want to make friendships with. You know, they're going to have a lower, perhaps, sense of intimacy and connectivity with other people. I know I'm trying to kind of connect up all the pieces here, and I'm proposing a kind of mediating model. But you know, can you walk us through whether this is a possibility, and if so, what results point to it?
Yeah. Well, you know, whenever you have a competitive orientation outside of you know, competitive sports, which we play for fun, that's not a road for happiness. There's always going to be people that are better than you, and trying to dominate other people separates you from them, and connections to other people is what makes people happy. So I would agree with the thrust of your question, but I'd like to add this twist to it. Basically, you're pointing out the difference between intrinsic and extrinsic motivations. You know, if we're driven to do things because of their inherent value versus doing things to beat out the other guy, that's the difference between intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. And there's just lots of research showing if you're doing things for their own sake, you're happier, you're more likely to get into these gratifying flow states, etc. If you're doing experiential things for extrinsic reasons, you're going to run into trouble there too. If you're climbing Everest just so you can beat out other people, if you want to go to this vacation just so you could go back and make everyone at work feel jealous of you, that's not a road for happiness. Conversely, there are certain, I would call them aficionados, people who they're not generally materialistic, but they're really interested in one category of material goods, or a few you know, I know everything about old cars, or, you know, women have often told me after my talks, you know, what about boots? You know, I'm just really interested in shoes and boots, and they know a ton about them. And that's not general materialism, and those people could very much have an intrinsic orientation to that product category that's very gratifying. And it starts to take on many of the same sources of gratification as experiences do. Purchasing these things are more like an experience. It's a bigger part of who they are. They connect with other people, and they've got this knowledge base that is very intrinsic and very gratifying. So a big part of, you know, whether you're going to go down a path that promotes happiness or not is whether you're doing it intrinsically and extrinsically. It just turns out that you're more likely to do experiential things for intrinsic reasons and more likely to pursue materialistic things for extrinsic reasons.
That's awesome.
So
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so the intrinsic, extrinsic, and material experiential are separate dimensions, you know, conceptually independent, but they overlap in real life.
Right. And it seems to me that where you're ending with this is to say that what really is the underlying dimension, in some sense more central, conceptually at least, is the intrinsic versus extrinsic. It just happens to be the case that there's a environmental correlation between intrinsic and experiential and extrinsic and material. But really, what we should be worrying about or thinking about is intrinsic versus extrinsic, right?
That's a big part of it. I don't know whether that does all the freight. That is, if it's intrinsic, does it automatically mean that it's more likely to be a part of your life narrative, sense of self? Well, maybe. Yeah, I think it makes it more likely, but it doesn't guarantee that. And is it more likely you're going to connect with other people? Yeah, it makes it more likely. It doesn't guarantee it as well. So I don't know if I want to go as far as to say that's really the core of it, but that's a big part of it.
All right, this was awesome, Tom. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. I know that you have a class coming up, so I hope that I didn't take away any of the time.
No, not at all, Raj. It's always a pleasure to talk to you.
Okay. Adios.
Right.
I'll send you the edited version of the video when it's ready. Okay.
Excellent. Okay. Thanks, Raj.
Take care.
Right.
Bye. Bye.
Yeah. Be well.